Now we will look at adding positive and negative integers together, so working with tiles of different colors at the same time. We will start with positive 3 plus negative 2. We know the positive 3 means 3 red tiles, the negative 2 means 2 blue tiles. Using the zero principle and canceling out our zeros, we are left with positive 1. If I look at negative 2 plus or and positive 1, 2 blue tiles and 1 red tile, 1 zero cancels out, and I'm left with negative 1. Positive 4 and negative 1, 4 red and 1 blue, cancel my 0, and I'm left with positive 3, 3 red. Positive 2 and negative 4, 2 red and 4 blue, cancel my zeros, leaves me with 2 blue or negative 2. So unlike when you're just adding positive and you know you get a positive, or you're just adding negatives and you know you get a negative, when you're adding positive and negatives, you can get either a positive answer, positive 1 and positive 3, or a negative answer, like negative 1 and negative 2. It really depends on which number is bigger. Is the bigger one positive or negative? If I look at now subtracting integers. Subtraction really means add the opposite, and we talked about this a little bit in just our very first activity. When I have subtract positive 4, that is the same as add negative 4. Subtract negative 4 is the same as add positive 4, adding and then the opposite. So if we look at some examples on the number line, 5 subtract positive 3 really means 5 plus negative 3. I'm adding the opposite. So 5 and negative 3, when we move back 3 from 5, we end up at positive 2. 5 subtract negative 3. If we look at adding the opposite, it's really plus positive 3. So 5 plus 3 leaves me at positive 8. Negative 5 subtract negative 3 becomes negative 5 plus the opposite, so plus positive 3. Negative 5 and positive 3, so moving right positive 3, leaves me at negative 2. And finally, negative 5 take away positive 3. Adding the opposite means we're really at negative 5 plus negative 3. So negative 5 and negative 3, or negative 3 more, leaves me at negative 8. So now if I put the adding integers of different signs together along with the subtracting integers, we can really start to see how the algebra tiles will help us model. So if I want to model the addition of a positive 3, I'm going to do that with 3 red tiles. If I want to model the addition of negative 3, I'm going to do that with 3 blue tiles. Now if I look at subtracting positives, so subtracting positive 3 is subtracting 3 red tiles. But remember that subtract means add the opposite. So when I make those the opposite, it's really adding 3 blue tiles. Subtracting negative integers. So say I want to subtract negative 3. Well, negative 3 is 3 blue tiles. But if we go back to the idea that subtract means add the opposite, I'm going to make it the opposite, so 3 red tiles, and that's what I'll be adding in with the algebra tiles. So it's always a good idea when you're adding or subtracting with integers to really eliminate any double signs that you see. Add a positive is the same as just adding or a positive. Add a negative is the same as a subtract or just a negative. Subtract a positive is the same as subtract or negative. And subtract a negative, because of the idea of subtraction meaning the opposite, subtract a negative becomes a plus or a positive. So one way of remembering is to notice that same signs is positive, plus plus, minus minus, or different signs becomes a negative. Plus minus or positive negative becomes a negative. Subtract plus or negative positive becomes a negative.